Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Thank you, Vrnda, Mother Vrnda. That was beautiful. So there, Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to the Sunday Feast class. We're so excited to have Her Grace Mother Vrnda Prabhu with us today. I'm going to read a quick bio of her for those of you who do not know her. So, Her Grace Mother Vrnda Prabhu is a director of several Canadian ISKCON corporations, and she facilitates the work of ISKCON Manitoba. She was initiated in Vancouver, Canada in 1986. As a graduate of the GBC College, she currently serves as a zonal supervisor for North America, Zone 1, the North. She is a member of the North American Council, the North American Vision Team, and the SAPA, Spiritual Advisors Bhagavata Assembly, I believe. So she recently retired after 17 years as Chief Financial Officer for a nonprofit organization, where she was responsible for millions of tightly monitored government funding. She built and maintained highly respected systems for accountability, becoming known for her integrity, systems thinking, and team leadership. She is also an educator, author, and editor. A recent project of hers included assisting one of ISKCON's top educators, Mother Urmila Prabhu, Dr. Edith Best, to prepare the Shastic Advisory Council's Level 1 hermeneutics learning materials. Oh, we said that wrong. What is that?
You got it, hermeneutics.
Okay. Okay. She's also well known for her book, The Ram Club and the Rath Yatra Rubies. Today, Mother Vrnda Prabhu will be speaking to us about the 7 purposes of ISKCON. It is such an honor to have her speak to us today in St. Louis. Please join me in welcoming her. And with that, I'll hand over the ball to her so we can start the presentation without further ado. We'll take questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Riddhi. It's so nice to be here with you. And it's so nice to see what a lovely young lady you've grown into. So I remember you as a little kid. So it's really nice to be here. I saw that it's somebody's birthday. There's somebody here who needs to have birthday greetings? Can we say some birthday greetings to I think somebody's 11 years old. Is that right? What's the person's name?
Sri Hari. Is he on the call?
Is he here?
Trying to see. Sri Hari here?
Anyway, happy birthday to him, 11 years old, embarking on a lovely life in Krishna consciousness. So our topic today that Riddhi asked me to speak on was the 7 purposes of ISKCON. And so we're not actually going to chant a verse today, but we will start with the Mangalacharam, the same one that is in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. So please chant along with me. Okay. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Pada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitanscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshvari Rishabandhu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha, kripa sindhubhya eva cha, patitanam pavanebhyo, vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shri Vas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, 7 purposes of ISKCON. We're all here because of ISKCON, and we're going to go on a little time travel, a little journey. So, there we are in New York in about 1966, the winter of 65, 66 or thereabouts, where Srila Prabhupada was walking down the streets of New York, thinking about how he was going to start his movement. And it did get started. And very promptly, he incorporated it. Now, I thought you might like to see, let's see, Riddhi, is everybody seeing my Zoom controls at the top there or not? Not sure how to get them gone.
I can't see them.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so I thought you might like to see the actual document while we're doing our little time traveling here. So July 1966, Srila Prabhupada was having the devotees create this document. We, the undersigned, for the purpose of forming a corporation pursuant to the religious corporation law of the state of New York. And it goes on for a couple pages. So let's see. There's, as it carries on, some names of devotees. There in the middle of the screen, you can see A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, his signature. And on the far right, the signature of the lawyer. At the bottom, the stamp from the government. These are the actual incorporation documents of ISKCON from way back then. And possibly many of you were already familiar with the 7 purposes. We're going to unpack them a little bit today. So it starts off with the purposes for which the corporation is organized are to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large and to educate all peoples in the techniques of spiritual life in order to check the imbalance of values in life and to achieve real unity and peace in the world. That's how it starts off. Now, you might think that, maybe Srila Prabhupada just dashed these off in a hurry because the government required some, that there be something in the blank there and that he had to say something to incorporate the legal entity. But if we actually go back in time a little further, 1953 approximately, Jhansi, we come to Srila Prabhupada's project, the League of Devotees. And the League of Devotees, as it turns out, Srila Prabhupada had made a prospectus for the League of Devotees. There it is. He had this little brochure printed up. And he, if you go online to this Vani source, or Vanipedia, you can actually see the document and you can read the transcription of it, or you can actually read it. This is page 8 or so of, how many pages? Page 8 of 15 pages. So there we see the first purpose again, to propagate spiritual knowledge systematically for checking the imbalance of life to the whole race of India and the world over, with a view to educate the people in general in the techniques of spiritual life as the basis for balanced psychic and biological developments of the human race, and thereby achieve real unity and peace of the contending elements of the present world. Sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? It wasn't, when Srila Prabhupada incorporated ISKCON in New York in 1966, this wasn't off the cuff, slapdash, oh, we got to say something for the government. This is something he'd been thinking of for many years, at least since 1953, when this document was created and distributed to the people that he was hoping would become members of the League of Devotees. So we can understand that Srila Prabhupada was very committed to these purposes, these 7 purposes. It's pretty much like allowing for modernizing the language somewhat. It's pretty much the same 7 purposes. And I would definitely invite you to go to somewhere like Vanipedia or somewhere on the internet where you can see these actual documents and have a look through them. Little time travel for you. I know it's before most of you were born. 1966 is probably before most of you were born. 1953 is when I was born, so it's really quite a while ago. And because it's quite a while ago, there's some words in here that aren't exactly the way we still use them nowadays, or maybe they're words we hardly use nowadays. For instance, this word propagate, we don't tend to use that in everyday language. One of its main uses is in horticulture or biology, when they're talking about having more plants, right? If you have a plant and want to make more plants from your plant, then that's called propagation. So plants can propagate by seeds or by slips, where you take a little piece of the plant and put that in soil and it roots and grows. Or by whatever method plants can be made to make more plants. So propagation is, it has a nice resonance of growing, of cultivating, of making more. So that's the first meaning of it. And then the second meaning sort of comes from it, to spread and promote an idea. So we have to know what this word propagate means, because Srila Prabhupada is using it in the 7 purposes. And let's start looking at these 7 purposes. So one of the things we have here, the first purpose, there's some interesting words here. There's to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large, and to educate all peoples in the technique of spiritual life in order to check the imbalance of values in life and to achieve real unity and peace in the world. So one word I'd like you to look at is check, because when we use check nowadays, we pretty much mean go look into it, like check and make sure that you packed the passports, or check and make sure the windows are closed. That's the way we usually use check nowadays. But when Srila Prabhupada was growing up, in English, the word check more oftenly meant stop. It meant like put up some barrier so that it's not happening anymore. Like if a horse is running away, you would check the horse by pulling hard on the reins. Or if if you were going to a checkpoint, it was a stop point. When you go through a checkpoint, they would stop you and check your passport. But the initial thing was they would stop you there. So he's saying, in order to stop the imbalance, in order to get a balance. And it's interesting, like the point is to achieve real unity and peace in the world. Sometimes we think maybe that spiritual people don't really care about this world. They're only about the next destinations, or that they don't want people to be happy. But one thing that we know about Srila Prabhupada is that he came he said he wanted people to be happy. The only thing was people in general didn't have a very good idea of how to be happy. They were looking in the wrong places for happiness. And he was wanting to show them where the right places were so that they could be happy. Some other words, now that we know what propagate means, there's some other words to look at here. Systematically. To systematically do this stuff. So to do this stuff systematically means to have systems. And that's an interesting thought because nobody likes bureaucracy, right? And nobody likes corporate stuff except corporations. And we all kind of think that, you know, if we borrow corporate ideas into ISKCON, it will become impersonal or something. And I've been having an interesting metaphor come to mind over the last 2 days while some other meetings that I've been in, where it was talking about building the future of ISKCON the way a person would plan a house. If you were planning a house, you would start with knowing what kind of rooms you need and what you need to be able to do in the house. And then you would build a floor plan based around what rooms you need. And then you would figure out what the outside looked like based on what needed to be on the inside. And probably you would have some systems in there like plumbing system and electrical system. And the systems would have to be there. But where do you put them? You kind of hide them between the walls, right? You don't put the plumbing on the outside of the wall. And you don't notice the systems unless they don't work. That's when you start to notice systems, is when they don't work. So yes, in ISKCON, we don't want to have bureaucracy, but we do want to have systems. We want to make sure that the assets are protected. We want to make sure that the trademarks are protected. Like, we would very much scold the leaders if they let the trademarks get lost and let some other organization get control of them, right? And like, what if somebody opened Govinda's steakhouse? We would be very upset. And so there needs to be some systems so that we can protect the trademarks, protect the movement, protect the assets. So that leads me into talking a little bit about even why Srila Prabhupada, you know, he actually incorporated that League of Devotees in Jhansi. But Bhaktisiddhanta had not incorporated anything. And it's not from not liking those kinds of legal systems, because I remember seeing in Vrindavan, there's kind of a museum where they have a lot of the original documents from some things. And they had the land title for Radhakund. The 6 Goswamis made the effort to get the title to the land of Radhakund so that they owned it. So they were thinking in material methods to protect their spiritual assets. So I'm just saying all this to emphasize the value of systems, and Srila Prabhupada using this word systematically propagate spiritual knowledge. So Srila Prabhupada wanted things to be logically and systematically done. We all know some of Srila Prabhupada's nearly last words, where he called Giriraj Swami now in the middle of the night and asked him, you know, do you think the movement will go on after I'm gone? And Giriraj was like, yes, of course, if as long as the devotees cooperate. And Srila Prabhupada was like, and kind of said organization and intelligence is what is needed more than anything else. So organization and intelligence. Srila Prabhupada was in favor of these things. He incorporated the League of Devotees and he incorporated ISKCON because of what had happened to the Gaudiya Math. Bhaktisiddhanta's, you know, there were 64 maths throughout India. And the assets, the temples, were held in the names of private people, of devotees, all different devotees. And so almost as soon as Bhaktisiddhanta left, there was fights over the assets. And Srila Prabhupada saw it and was distressed by it and wanted to follow the orders of his spiritual master in a way that would protect things better. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had tried to set up a governing body commission to carry on with the administration of the movement, and it hadn't happened. And that was one of the things that caused the problem. And also these assets were being held in different devotees' names. And so then there was court cases that were very ongoing for years and years. So the thing that Srila Prabhupada did is he tried very hard to set up a GBC like his spiritual master had wanted. And he ensured that there was an incorporated entity, ISKCON, that could hold the assets of ISKCON, could own the temples and the land, and own the rights to he had set up the BBT to own the rights to the books. And he did that to protect everything. And he very interestingly didn't just want to set up one ISKCON for the world. The headquarters is in Mayapur, yes, but every ISKCON center around the world is incorporated separately. And Srila Prabhupada said that he wanted all of the leaders in each center to know how to do that kind of thing and how to maintain it. And of course, as a result of that, we can do things like charitable donation receipts and other useful, get a permit for Ratha Yatra, other useful aspects, because we are, all of our ISKCONs are incorporated entities. And we also have a lot of scope for leaders' creativity because they're all separately incorporated entities. So this is all coming out of Srila Prabhupada's action in creating these 7 purposes and incorporating, and his use of the word here, systematically, to systematically propagate what? Spiritual knowledge. To who? To just the devotees? To society at large. And to educate just the Americans? Just the Indians? Nope. Educate all peoples. Because, people is already a plural word, right? When we say people, we don't mean one person, we mean a whole bunch of persons become people. But here he's saying all peoples, and so that means all types of people, all ethnic groups, all ages, all genders, whatever, all variety. We know that Krishna really likes variety. We know that there's no 2 snowflakes alike. We know there's no 2 fingerprints alike. We know there's no 2 sets of DNA alike, except you're identical twins. Even then, there's slight differences. So Srila Prabhupada wanted to achieve real unity and peace in the world, but unity in variety, unity in diversity. So that his work was for all peoples in the techniques of spiritual life. Why? To check the imbalance of values, to get some balance back into the values that the world has. So that's the first purpose. Second purpose, we see that word propagate again. To propagate a consciousness of Krishna, God, as it is revealed in the great scriptures of India, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. I want to just say a tiny bit about this word consciousness. Sometimes we say that people are health conscious, right? If a person is health conscious, it means that they base their decisions around things that will be good for their health. They choose what to eat because of their health. They choose where to go. They choose what time to go to bed. They choose what to wear. Their decisions are made because their goal is health. So they're health conscious. And sometimes we say that people are fashion conscious. And so then in the same way, their decisions are based around being fashionable. And sometimes we say about maybe nobody that we know, but used to say that somebody was like boy conscious or girl conscious, like they're looking for their life partner already. And that's what they're making their decisions on. Or whatever it is that their goal is, that we say that they're that conscious, like being health conscious. And so we want to be Krishna conscious. We want to make our decisions based on Krishna. We want our goal to be Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada's second purpose, to propagate a consciousness of Krishna, an awareness of Krishna, that he's there, that he loves us, that he wants us back home, that he is our friend and he's looking out for us. So to propagate a consciousness of Krishna, like we can read in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. The third purpose, to bring the members of the society together with each other and nearer to Krishna, the prime entity, thus developing the idea within the members, that's us, and humanity at large, that's everybody else in the world, that each soul is part and parcel of the quality of Krishna. And start to go a little faster through these. The fourth purpose, to teach and encourage the Sankirtan movement, congregational chanting of the holy name of God, as revealed in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we noticed in the first purpose that there was talk there also about educate. So there's quite a theme of, spreading knowledge throughout these 7 purposes of ISKCON. And the fifth purpose, to erect for the members, and not just the members, for society at large, a holy place, or a whole bunch of holy places of transcendental pastimes dedicated to the personality of Krishna. And the sixth purpose, to bring the members closer together for the purpose of, again, teaching a simpler, more natural way of life. Simpler and more natural is interesting because it's not about more and more complicated, more and more rituals, harder and harder vows. It's not really saying that. It's saying closer together for a simpler, more natural way of life. And the seventh purpose, with a view toward achieving the aforementioned purposes, what? What's going to help achieving the aforementioned purposes? To publish and distribute periodicals, magazines, books, and other writings. Well, that's interesting. Why did he have to say other writings after going periodicals and magazines and books? Sort of seems to cover it. But interestingly, that then leaves scope for the internet. The internet is another way to publish and distribute, isn't it? And that's the 7 purposes. And we're going to talk a little bit about what do we do now that we've got these 7 purposes? What do we do with them? What are they good for? So one thing is, whenever we incorporate a new ISKCON, which hopefully we are incorporating more and more new ISKCONs, we can adopt those 7 purposes. We can tell the government, this is what we do. This is what we're incorporating for. And we should incorporate, and we should make sure the assets are held in the name of ISKCON, not in the name of private people or in the name of some other, entity, because this is Srila Prabhupada's movement. We should do it the way that he wanted it, the way he set it up. And what else can we do with these 7 purposes? Well, we can use them for planning. Those of you who have taken strategic planning or have done some planning, you know that you have to kind of start with a goal. You have to have a goal in mind. You have to know where you want to go, where you are now, and then you can start to build a bridge between those 2 distant shores. One shore being where I'm standing right now, and the other one being where do I want to be in the future. And so we shouldn't be just doing things to do them. We should understand where we want to go and how we're going to get there. And so the 7 purposes give us a good goal. We might not personally take every single one of those purposes. Even a project, even a temple like ISKCON, St. Louis or somewhere, might not take on responsibility for doing all 7 at once all the time. But some people are going to be more inspired to do some, like some people get very inspired by the educating aspect. Other people get very inspired by the simple living aspect, but can take what Srila Prabhupada has written in the purposes as a goal. And then that being our goal, we can evaluate our activities. How are we doing against that? Are we staying on track? Are we drifting off to other things? Are we being, not trying hard enough to achieve the goals? So I'm going to show you one thing here. This is one ISKCON Manitoba, where I am. And so we actually have occasionally made a list of the 7 purposes. And then what are we doing to actually fulfill those purposes? How do our activities line up with the purposes? Are we doing stuff that help the purposes? Do we have plans in the future? Or would we have a blank box there because although it's our purpose, we're not doing anything about it? So an ISKCON as North America could do this. Any separate ISKCON temple could do this. An ISKCON project could go through this exercise, and an ISKCON member could go through this exercise. To what extent is my own life driven by the purposes that Srila Prabhupada set up? To what extent is it, to what extent am I trying to achieve Srila Prabhupada's purposes, the mission that he wanted? So, so we just went through these very, very briefly, and you can ask me questions and we can go through some of them a little more if you like. But I just wanted to show you this. Last July, the GBC spiritual planning team, you can see the initials there, GBC SPT, underneath each one of these little thumbnail icons. See if I can make the cursor show that. They, in July, because July is the anniversary of the incorporation of ISKCON, they organized a festival online because it was COVID, where they had a whole hour on each one of these purposes twice over. So they had 14 YouTubes, and you can see that one's like an hour and 11 minutes, one's an hour and 10 minutes, an hour and 4 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes. So if you want to dive deeply into any of these purposes, go on a journey with someone whose life has been about that particular purpose, like Lokanath Swami with congregational chanting, or Tapan Mishra with education, or Vaisheshika Prabhu with the book distribution to achieve all the other purposes. I'm going to recommend that you go on YouTube and Google GBC SPT or Google ISKCON Incorporation Date. Well, not Google, but search it inside the YouTube search and find this spot and watch some of these very profound videos. There's Jayapataka Swami talking about how to erect places of transcendental pastimes, because of course he's in charge of Mayapur, which is, the transcendental pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the head of the headquarters of ISKCON globally. So if you get a chance, go and check that out. If you have trouble finding it, let Riddhi know and I'll give her the links. So as a last little review, first purpose, propagate spiritual knowledge, propagate a consciousness of Krishna, bring the society nearer to Krishna, encourage the Sankirtan movement, erect holy places of pastimes, teach simpler natural way of life, and distribute those wonderful books. So I'm perfectly willing to hear questions if anybody has any questions. That's my favorite part of any class. I'd way rather want to know what you want to know about than what I think I should tell you. It's better if you ask me. So really like to open it up for questions if anybody has anything they'd like to comment on or complain about or investigate further.
While some devotees are thinking, I have a question to start us off.
Mm-hmm.
So I know we're talking about ISKCON today, and I've heard that we should not be ISKCON conscious, but Krishna conscious. And sometimes groupism can be bad when we start to exclude others, coming to the us versus them mentality, sometimes against other religious or spiritual groups, even like ISKCON versus Gaudiya Vaishnava or, other groups. So what are your thoughts on that?
Very, very good question. Okay. So first of all, we are told that it is one of the offenses against the holy name to speak badly against anybody who is a devotee or any literatures in pursuance of the Vedic version. So we really, really do need to be very careful not to, you know, not to assume that people aren't devotees. They may be a devotee on a slightly different path or even a very different path. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is quoted as saying something very interesting. When he finds somebody who is worshiping God in a different way from the way that he worships God, he says, "My Lord is so wonderful, he can be worshipped in this way too." You know, it's not either or. It's both and, you know. So we should always be very glad to see anybody that believes that there is a supreme person and believes that their role in life is to get closer to the supreme person, by whatever names they call the supreme person. As we know, he has unlimited number of names, so we don't even know all his names, so we can't even say that that isn't a name of his, you know? So so that's one thing. We really should not put down anybody on a different path. We should appreciate that they are also trying to become closer to the Lord. And in terms of other institutions and organizations, it's kind of like, you know, in your family, you have your siblings, but you also have your cousins. And for instance, Gaudiya and Mahat, we're cousins. We come from the same, you know, grandparents. We come from the same family, spiritual family, and we can definitely appreciate the slightly different way they do things. Just like, you know, in my house, I wash the dishes and I put it in a drying rack. In your house, you might wash the dishes and dry them right away with a tea towel and put them away right away. And, you know, it's just a different way of doing it. Krishna likes things a little different. He likes variety. We were just talking about the snowflakes and the fingerprints and everything. So it's not like there's only one right way. Sometimes people want there to be only one right way, and they feel insecure about their own decisions if the other ways aren't wrong. You know, like they feel insecure that they may have chosen the wrong path if there isn't only one right way and it's theirs. But actually, all those paths are so close. You know, I was in a seminar by Jayadvaita Swami one time, a long time ago. It was about, it was the Nectar of Instruction. And in there, it does talk about, you know, who is a devotee. And, you know, what it explains, one definition in the scripture is that if someone has chanted the holy name of Krishna even once, or if somebody has come into a temple even once, they're a devotee. So we need to be very respectful. We need to be very careful not to be exclusive. We need to be quite inclusive and welcoming, and get rid of the idea in our minds of duality that if it's not white, then it must be black. And if it's not exactly the way I do it, then it must be wrong, or else they're right and I'm wrong, and that's uncomfortable. There's so much variety that's all good. There's so much of a continuum on the path. It isn't that people are necessarily on the wrong path. They just might be at a different point of the path, or they might be on a parallel path. So as we mature, we become more comfortable with the diversity. That's the definition. That's the difference between Kanishta Adhikari, like the neophytes, and the Madhyama Adhikari in the middle category. The Kanishta Adhikari doesn't know how to interact with other devotees. And the Madhyam Adhikari does know, can tell who is more advanced, can tell who's on kind of the same level as oneself, and can tell who's junior and should be helped along the way. And, Nectar of Instruction even tells us how to interact with those different groups. Serve the ones that are more advanced than oneself, make friends with the ones that are on the same level, and be very helpful and nurturing to the ones that are beginning. And, I think I read something recently about where Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, when he's talking about neophytes, he's saying their faith is very flexible. He's not even saying their faith is weak. He's just saying that it's soft and pliable. It's like, and so what we need to do is be very open-hearted to all the different groups. We shouldn't try to be sectarian. Srila Prabhupada said we're not sectarian. He wasn't trying to be sectarian. But we're in Srila Prabhupada's movement. And if we want to take advantage of what he's giving to us, we should read his books first. Then we'll know how to judge other knowledge, whether it is in line with Siddhanta or not, right? Like, we should read his books first. And then after that, I mean, if there is any time after that, he wrote so many books, that then there could be more exploration and we would have a good sense of how to apply what else we might happen to read. But in that, your original part of the question is like being ISKCON conscious. Yeah, nobody should really be ISKCON conscious, but we should be very happy to be part of ISKCON. And we should always be thinking how to push on the movement, how to push on Srila Prabhupada's movement. He defined that, Srila Prabhupada defined that as part of being Krishna conscious, which is very good for those of us who are, not, hearing Krishna's flute and hearing Krishna's ankle bells at all moments. Then there is something very Krishna conscious for us to do, is to always be thinking how to push on the movement, how to help more people get the information about, the fact that they are spirit soul and Krishna loves them and they are actually part and parcel of Krishna and they have a fantastic future back with Krishna in the spiritual world. So, Riti, does that get anywhere near the question?
Yeah, that definitely helps. Thank you so much.
Did I miss any points of it?
No, you covered everything.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate the answer.
Has anybody put up their hand or put any question in the chat or anything in the meantime?
I'm not seeing anything. Feel free to ask questions. This is the time we have this wonderful opportunity.
My spiritual master, Gopal Krishna Maharaj, says that asking questions is a sign of intelligence. And so please feel free, all of you intelligent people out there, to ask a question or make a comment or point out a connection or complain. Complain about the situation that we find ourselves in the material world or anything like that. Complain about any of the things we talked about today.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandat Pranams. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Mataji, I have a question. At
Yes.
ISKCON, devotees, we do services at the temple. So how do we work together so that we don't commit any Vaishnava Parada or offense to any devotee? Any practical suggestions and tips around it, Mataji?
Ah, very good question, and very, very, very important for our spiritual life that we don't offend other devotees, right? So, and in working together, there is always going to be at least, like where there's two people, there's going to be at least 2 points of view. And as you know, there's a saying, if two people always agree, one of them is not necessary. There should be a variety of points of view. And indeed, that is the actual way that we grow and improve and progress in spiritual life, is trying to learn how to get along with others on a spiritual path. And that's our curriculum, and that's our test, and that's our credentials. You know, that's our graduation present is being able to get along with others on the spiritual path. So one of the things that's very important is making sure that we advance in some qualities. And some of the qualities that we ourselves need are, you know, humility, assuming that other people's intentions are actually good, understanding that intent and impact are not necessarily the same thing. And so before I talk a little bit more about those things, I'm going to back up a little bit and remind us all that you know, we were told that devotees should wear the Trinada Pisanichena verse as an ornament on a necklace, right? Like that should be our jewels that we decorate ourselves with, is the understanding to be more humble, do the, you know, blade of grass. We should really imbibe that mood, that we ourselves, it's okay to be very humble. One of the things that humility, let's talk a little bit about humility. In order to get along with devotees, we need to be humble. Humility doesn't mean thinking that you're bad. Humility doesn't mean having low self-esteem. Humility means, Srila Prabhupada defines it very nicely in one of the purports in Bhagavad Gita. Humility means not being desirous to be honored by others, right? You could have a very good opinion, an accurate opinion, or even an inflated opinion of your own worth in your own mind, but you don't go around wanting others to honor you. You're satisfied, you're self-satisfied with where you are at in terms of what you have for gifts this time around. And so you're not demanding honor from others. Most of the time when there's difficulties between two devotees, it's because one of them feels that the other disrespected them, feels that they're not getting the respect they deserve. If you never expect any respect, if you never demand any honor, then that particular problem will never surface. If you don't mind whether people realize that you're so good or not, then you won't be having, most of the conflicts with them will go away. And if they also are doing the same thing, then all of the conflicts will go away if you don't mind whether other people honor you or not. So giving up the idea of wanting to be honored by others, that's humility. And that will help such a long way in getting along with devotees. One of the things that people sometimes get trapped up by is they think, well, I don't need to be honored, but still the way he's doing it is wrong. And he should change. And so what one of the things that we have to realize is it my job to change him? It might be, if we're the temple president and he's, throwing money away. Or it might not be because we're peers or I'm junior or something. It's not my job. It's not my responsibility. Krishna or somebody else will take care of it. I should do my service very nicely and not worry about how well or badly somebody else is doing their service. And that will remove a lot of the conflict. Another aspect of it is if we kind of go like, if we understand the difference between intent and impact. Like sometimes somebody says something that hurts us. Sometimes we say something that hurts somebody else. Now, usually when we say something that hurts somebody else, we know that was accidental. We did not mean to hurt them, right? When we did it, we can clearly see the difference between the intent and the impact. We know we meant no harm. But when somebody else hurts us, we tend to assume, humans tend to assume that the hurt was intended, that the reason that we are hurting as a result of their comment is because they intended to hurt us. So we're not applying the same standards as we do when we accidentally hurt somebody. When we accidentally hurt somebody, we know it was an accident, and we apologize, and we don't feel like we intended to hurt somebody. But when somebody hurts us, sometimes we don't go to that spot first. So we should go to that spot first of, he probably didn't mean to hurt me. His intentions were probably fine. It just, the impact was unexpected. He couldn't have known, or, I didn't have to take it that way, or, his intent was probably good. The impact, not so good, but the intent was probably fine. And so one of the things that we can do is honor, like hold in our minds the likelihood that their intent was much better than the impact that actually happened. And that's a really important aspect of getting along with others on a spiritual path. The same book, Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, tells us a lot about the loving exchanges between devotees, and we need to actually do those loving exchanges. We need to have devotees over for prasadam. We need to go to their place and have prasadam with them. We need to ask them about their experiences becoming a devotee and share their, get to know them and understand where they're coming from and not make assumptions. And be very personal. And then we will, how you'll forgive somebody that that quite well, but somebody that you already feel a little bit irritated by, you will just add up your irritations. It's a concept known as the emotional bank account, where the people make deposits or withdrawals into each other's emotional bank account with each other, so that you can get to a point where, like, if somebody has done 100 lovely things and you really think they're fine, and then they do one bad thing, you kind of go, oh, I'm sure they didn't mean it, and it's they've still got 99 good thing credit with you. But if somebody has already done 3 bad things to you, and now they do one more, they're overdrawn. I'm drawing the line. This is no good. And all they did was the same small bad thing as the person that you have a great emotional bank account with. So what we need to do to help with that is to actually be building up our emotional bank accounts with devotees. We need to make friends with our peers. We need to serve our seniors. We need to help our juniors, and actually have relationships with them, with lots of emotional deposits in the bank accounts, in the emotional bank accounts. So that's something that we need to do, is be very personal and have relationships, and hear from devotees where they're at. Ask them questions about, how did you become a devotee? And you'll hear stories that melt your heart and make you very fond of the devotees. But if all you know them as is a rushed person trying to do a service that interferes with your service, well, then you won't be building those nice relationships with those nice emotional bank accounts. Okay, I've gone on about a lot of points, Ravi. I don't know if I've answered anything. Can you tell me, have I missed some aspect that I should actually get into a bit here?
I think you covered a lot, Mataji. Thank you very much. I like the emotional bank account analogy given. So that's really good.
Yeah, yeah. It's important. We need to, that is actually our exam. Krishna is looking how we get along with other devotees. That's the thing in the spiritual world, right? In the spiritual world, there's still competition. In the spiritual world, there's still people that kind of go like, oh, she served Krishna so much better than I did. Now, in the material world, when we feel that way, we go, she served Krishna so much better. Now I feel bad. I wish something should happen and she should lose that service and I should get it or something, But in the spiritual world, it's like, wow, she made Krishna so happy. I'm so happy she made Krishna happy, and then everybody gets happier and happier. And then you wish for her to have even more skills to serve Krishna even better and make him even happier. And everybody just keeps on getting happy. The difference, the competition is still there in the spiritual world, but the little dagger of bad feeling isn't, and all we need to do to turn this world into Vaikuntha is to not have that little dagger in our heart when somebody else does something better than us. We should be very happy when somebody does something better than us and really glorify them and appreciate them and be willing to have somebody else in the center of the stage other than us. That's the reason that we're here in the material world is because we wanted to be the star of the movie, right? And we didn't want Krishna to be the star of the movie or any of those other devotees to be the star of the movie. We wanted to be the star of the movie. And if we can let go of that idea of being the star of the movie and get the idea that we are a supporting player, we'll be happier, our relationships will be happier, we will actually be becoming qualified to return to the spiritual world. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that you let people exploit you. That doesn't mean that you become a doormat. You can just remove yourself from their, if you find out they're a criminal or a child molester or a wife beater, or you can move yourself out of their path, and if they do something actually criminal, it is your job to blow the whistle. An important step in blowing the whistle in a blowing whistle type of situation, or even in not a criminal situation, but just a situation where you're like, how could they do that? I think Riddhi and some of the devotees on this call have probably heard me say this before, but there's the Arjuna model. Arjuna was in a conversation with Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where Krishna made reference to having taught the sun god stuff way back. And Arjuna's like, how can that be true? He's my cousin. I don't know if he's telling the truth here. So Arjuna had a choice at that moment. He could have gone, I think my cousin's going off the rails. He's losing it. There's something wrong with this picture. I think I'll start respecting him from a distance. Or he could have said, he could have blasted out, you're an idiot. How can you say that? That I know that you're only the same age as me. How could you have taught the sun god? Or he could have done what he did, which is like, on the one hand, you say you taught the sun god. On the other hand, I know you, you're my cousin, we're about the same age. I know what your life has been. I can't make these two ideas click together. Only you can help me. So what's the deal? And then Krishna can explain, right? So Arjuna, respectfully asked for help understanding. And we can do that too with anytime that we see something we think isn't right, we can go to the person and say, here's my understanding of our philosophy and our etiquette and the way we do things. That's what, I've been told. And over here is what I think I understand what you did. Can you help me understand? I can't make those two things go together. And at that point, the person can tell you, oh, it's not exactly like you saw. That isn't really what happened, or here's the extenuating circumstances, or here's what was really going on. Or they can say, you're right, you caught me, I'm sorry, I'll do it better next time. Or they can decide to be angry with you and unfriend you. But at least you've been respectful and personal and proper in a way that Krishna will appreciate, that you humbly went and asked for an explanation rather than you just unfriending them or you going and shouting at them or something. Is that useful? Is that helpful?
Yes, Mataji. Shri Mataji. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Are there any other questions out there? Everybody knows everything. No hands up, no questions.
Hare Krishna, places my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna, who is talking?
Rupa Vilas here. Hare Krishna.
Rupa Vilas, Hare Krishna. Do you have a question for us?
Yeah, kind of comments and then question about the first purpose. As Riddhi was asking about, the groupism, and so the first purpose itself, Srila Prabhupada says, this is to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to the society at large, as you pointed out, and educate all people in the technique of spiritual life. And he says, in order to check the imbalance of values in life and to achieve the real unity and peace. So I caught up those words, unity and peace in the world. So, but I don't understand how to do that, check the imbalance of values in life. Could you share something more about that? How to check the imbalance of values in life?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it is very good to look at what the values are. And sometimes we find that our values as devotees are different from the values out in the larger society. And sometimes not. Sometimes there are very high quality people who have very good values, even though they might not actually they may be atheists, but they still may be very good to people, right? They may have high values of life. Now, we do understand that, this idea of everybody wanting to be the star of their own movie, wanting to be the star of everybody else's movie, that when we are nice to our family, or nice to our town, or nice to our type of people, or proud of our country, that's just expanded false ego identification. But there are people whose desire is to be to help other people, to benefit the world, to not take more than their own quota. But in general, the values of the materialistic world is how can I take as much as possible? How can I get my quota and somebody else's and several other people's? And how can I get more and more, in a vain attempt to feel full and satisfied, which isn't going to work. But the idea for most of us is that we have to look at what is our area where we have influence, and where we have influence, there we should work to help get some balance in the values. We should, make sure that our own families can understand the purpose of life. That's within, like, I mean, our children, family. We can't really preach to our seniors. I sometimes joke, and please excuse me, but you can't really preach effectively with philosophy to people that wiped your nose and other parts of you when you were babies. So, for them, you just have to be very respectful and, say, yes, what you say is very good, and love them and give them prasadam. But people who are your dependents, you should make sure that they are educated. If your area of influence is wider, you should just keep widening that. Like if you're a teacher, or if you are a politician, or if you're a writer, or if you have some way of influencing the world, like maybe you write a great blog on the internet, maybe you're a musician and your recordings are starting to go wider, then make sure that the message of the fact that the peace formula, Bhagavad Gita 5:29, make sure that that information goes out, that people start to at least hear as a possibility that there is something more than just trying to get stuff materially for themselves, and let nicely, at where it can be received, let people know that actually the peace will come when Krishna is the benefactor of their activities. Is that at all helpful, Rupa Vilas, or more?
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for clarifying that. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. You always have good questions.
Thank you.
Are we out of time? I'm happy to stay on a little longer if anybody has any more questions.
We can take more questions if they have them. All right, well, looks like not.
Everybody is satisfied. And yeah, so it was very nice to be with you all today, and hope you have a wonderful week, and hope to see you again someday.
Hare Krishna. This is Lal Gopal Das.
Hare Krishna, Lal Gopal.
Hare Krishna Mataji. If I'm not sure if you could recognize me, but a couple of years back, I had an opportunity to be with, we attended the temple president meeting together, and from the airport, we traveled on the same car to the venue.
Yes.
So,
and you were working hard on your class. You were preparing to give a class. You were working very hard on that, and I admired that.
Yeah, I got sort of chastisement from Ananta Vrindavan Mataji for preparing for classes every late night. So anyway, I just want to bring up one point here to the audience here. One thing that I greatly stuck in my mind, in my heart, in associating with Vrinda Mataji is that when we took the cab from the airport to the venue, we were going in the same car, and we got off the car and the cab, and then I paid the charge for the cab, because one person can pay at the time, and Mataji did not have a US based credit card or whatever thing, so I paid it, and then it was decided the share will be given, we'll give the share later. But I didn't really bother about it. Things went on, moved on, and but within a day, or I can't remember, Mataji was in very much in an anxiety sort of thing. Finally, she found me and she came and gave, here is the money, please, $17.25 or whatever it is. She just gave it, and I can feel that she was having a big relief on her face. So I immediately remembered Ramayana, where Bharata was having a sort of a heavy load on his shoulder for 14 years, eagerly waiting for Rama to come so he can just give off that responsibility of ruling Ayodhya and be happy. So I felt that same mood in Mataji of giving the $17.25 to me, and she's very happy after that.
That's
So
true.
that
That
showed
was true.
that showed her genuine and responsibility and being committed, and especially coming from the finance background for her, it showed a lot of good qualities in that one incident. Thank you so much for coming and giving your association. We are very honored to have you here, and thanks for Riddhi for arranging and Ramacharya Prabhu for arranging this program. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you again. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So nice to see you again. Take
Thank
care.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Before we end, also, I'd like to share Vrnda Prabhu's book. It's on Krishna.com. I'm going to share my screen really quickly so that those kids, devotees out there can see it. Can everybody see my screen? I don't know what I'm sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So this is her wonderful book. And there's a quick description. So, feel free to look at this. I'll put the link in the chat.
I'm so glad I know you liked it, Riddhi. I'm so glad you liked it. All the proceeds are for Krishna.com. I've told them they can keep whatever money they can get from it. So if you'd like to support Krishna.com that way, that'd be lovely. It's, I don't know if any of you have read Enid Blyton. It's like an Enid Blyton book for our little devotee kids.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I just want to share, my son really enjoyed this book. Rup Vilas Prabhu had given this book to him. So he really enjoyed it. He wanted to know whether you had more. We looked online, we couldn't find anything at that time.
Oh, I haven't written the next one yet. It's still in draft. I'm still doing too much in management. I need to stop doing management and then I can write the next couple books.
Okay, I understand. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. That's very kind. Hare Krishna.
And I think we have Srihari on, or Rajeshwari Pran Mataji is here. And I think Divakar Prabhu is here. So we want to wish him a happy birthday. I don't know if you heard it yet.
Mm-hmm. Yes, happy birthday. Happy 11th birthday. Wow.
Oh.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. We'll end with Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubheva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.